it's my pleasure to welcome award-winning, nationally recognized social media professional and filmmaker, Jillian Rowe, to Good Morning Market. How you doing, Jillian?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who do not know, Jillian is the CEO and creative director of SMG Film and Advertising. It's a cinema quality commercial film and photography studio located here in the Savannah area. So Jillian is going to talk, well, she could talk about like 15 different marketing topics as we're ramping up our marketing programs, but I wanted to get her here to talk about your favorite topic, most likely, which is social media. So I appreciate you dropping some knowledge on us today.
Of course.
So I had my coffee this morning. Most of our audience probably listens in the morning. I did have to ask you, I hope you're not a green tea person, are you?
No.
Okay. So you're a normal person. No offense to my green tea people, but what is the proper way to take coffee in the morning?
I have a lot of options. If I am out in the morning, I will get some kind of a cold brew, even on a cold morning like today. If I leave the house, I convince myself that I've earned a nice coffee for that endeavor. If I'm making coffee at home, I like to be fussy, and I grind up whole beans and I use a French press because you cannot beat that flavor.
No, I agree.
Oh yeah, I really go down the coffee rabbit hole. I'm a firm believer. I also like a good pour over, like a Chemex style.
Yes.
And I like to put stevia and a little dash of heavy cream in my coffee.
Okay. I typically home grind my beans. I like to get whole bean, and then I just take it. I always want to be cool and take it black, but I rarely can go without the sugar. So I pull a little brown sugar and some whole milk creamer is how I usually take it. But I do have to ask you, do you prefer the darker roast or do you like the lighter roast?
I like all the roasts. I will let you in on a secret that I learned when I was in college. I worked at Starbucks. I was a barista. And they make you go through this like little Starbucks coffee training academy. And at the time I was like, okay, the farthest amount of coffee I will drink is like one of those little frilly frappuccinos because I hadn't really developed a taste for it yet at 18.
Right.
And they made us drink black coffee to kind of like sample all of their different flavors.
Yeah.
But an accompaniment they gave us is their iced lemon pound cake. And let me tell you, the combination of a dark, hot, kind of bitter black coffee with the lemony sweet goodness of the lemon pound cake.
Yes.
And so if you combine the two, it is magic. I highly recommend everyone do that.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, no, that's brilliant. Is at times I have done that. Like if you've got something sweet to eat, you want to kind of counterbalance it with the bitterness of the dark, not sweetened coffee.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. I need what was it? Lemon cake? What kind of thing was it?
Yeah, it's like iced lemon pound cake. And you don't have to take the Starbucks route because honestly, now that I've become more of a coffee aficionado, I've learned that Starbucks beans are trash.
I'm not crazy about the Pike Place roast, although their blonde roast is pretty solid.
Yeah. You know who makes the best coffee and it's locally roasted is Perk.
Yeah, I need to go check those guys out. Don't they still have a place where you can go and take a tour or go?
Yeah, so they have they have a place, I think it's on Broad Street, and they also recently in the last year, I guess, opened up a spot in Atlanta.
I think so.
And you can also buy their beans. They sell them at Whole Foods and they sell them at places like Foxy Luxy and other little spots around town.
Nice.
I will turn this whole podcast into a Perk commercial. I love them so much.
No, well, hey, Perk, you're welcome. Y'all can check them out. They are a local brand, so I always like supporting local. And they recently did a rebrand, so their logo and their new branding looks pretty dope.
Yes, and I also am obligated to say that Parker's also has really good coffee. You know, they have a 30-second bean to cup situation. You go there, get the little hopper with the beans, you pick what you want, you put your cup down there, you press the button, it grinds the beans, it brews it right there. Oh, it's good too. It's good on the go.
I like their hazelnut roast. So, that actually is going to segue into my first question for you is the reason she said that, she was obligated to do a little Parker's name drop is that's part of Jillian's background into how she got into the wide world of social media marketing. So why don't you kind of take us down that road, not your entire life story, but maybe how you got into social media marketing.
Oof. Okay. So my degree is in fashion design. And I was like, this is not a good path. And in fashion design school, I learned how to use the Adobe Creative Suite, like Illustrator and
Mhm.
whatnot.
Mhm.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to be a graphic designer for a little while. And then when you know how to do graphic design, people assume that you know how to build a website. I didn't. But I taught myself WordPress and how to do that. And then
Very cool.
social media became a thing.
Mhm.
And I thought, you know what, this might be a thing that businesses could use. And I have been in the game for so long that my very first client was a hair salon and I ran their MySpace page. How's that?
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet you all of our MySpace pages are out there somewhere. Nothing ever gets deleted off the internet. So thank you for taking us down that road.
Well, I think that actually MySpace went in and Tom did us all a favor and deleted all of our very old pages of
Thank God.
with photos that we'd rather forget.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, then social media became more visual content driven, and
Mhm.
I was forced to keep up. So I was forced to learn um, much better quality photography, and then it
Mhm.
turned towards video. I remember when Instagram and Facebook were letting you add videos, and that was a big thing. And so that's how I shifted into video, and now I'm in a place where I'm making TV commercials kind of across the country and making long
Mhm.
form documentaries and have a film
Mhm.
studio, but also doing social media.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another interesting thing I wanted to ask you about is, you mentioned MySpace. So we've gone back from, early 2000s MySpace, you had your publicly listed friends list. A lot of it was
How
back
they
and forth messages boards. You had your feature song and your profile. It was for the young kids. And now we're here in 2022. And when people think of social media, they're probably thinking of TikTok videos. You're talking about the level of acceleration and change in this industry has been crazy. What is the biggest change you've seen in social media, just in your time and being in the game?
So I've seen a lot of changes, but I think that one of the biggest changes I've seen is kind of the quality of content. So, production gear has become so accessible to
Mhm.
people now. Back in the day, if you wanted to have any sort of video content produced, you'd have to hire somebody that showed up with this giant camcorder and there'd be an
Mhm.
audio guy with a boom. Now, don't get me wrong, we still show up with those things,
Mhm.
but it's well, a lot more people have access to
Right.
making better stuff, and also even these have gotten better, so people are
Yeah.
able to take a lot better photos, that people are able to make little videos, and that sort of, it didn't really level the playing field, but it did make it accessible to
Mhm.
more people and more marketers. So
Right.
the quality of visual content has increased, but at the same time it got really high. But then we introduced things like TikTok, where
Mhm.
people are, coming back down and using their phones for things, and they're not hiring a professional to do things. And so that authenticity of a clearly homegrown video is also getting a lot of reactions too. So I've seen it kind of go up, and now it's kind of trending down a little bit. So
Mhm.
with Parkers, for example, our ads that we're placing for Parkers on Facebook and Instagram are beautifully produced. They're shot with a 6K camera. They're well lit.
Mhm.
They're pristine. They're beautiful. But TikTok, we're literally doing it with a phone, and it's not perfect. And it's that imperfection that adds the authenticity to the brand.
Right.
So
Right.
I've kind of seen this wave of visual content where it got really good, and now it's kind of going down, and then it you know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like that
So
answer just kind of
no,
went
but
off.
no, but that is what's going on with visual content, and like you said, we've seen so much in terms of the technology and what your everyday user can do, in how everything's become so democratized. But like you said, it's not a replacement, but I think it's also made the expectations of what people just expect to see when they're on social media. It's made it that much higher because now the floor is here instead of way down low where it was. Now, from a business perspective, I feel like businesses being on social media, I feel like it started more with, Google and Facebook, but now there's like a business flavor for every single social media outlet. At first, I think uh, it was everybody had a business profile, but then there were some really early adopters who were really good at using just how dang cheap and affordable advertising was back in the day. And like you told me in a previous time where I interviewed you, that back in the day, businesses could put up posts, not pay a dime for it back in 2014, 2015. and like all your people would see it. But like, what's the biggest change you've seen on the business side of the house with social media and using those as marketing vehicles?
So, I mean, it's true. We used to, back in the day, we used to be able to put something out, everyone would see it, it would show up in everyone's news feed, everything was happy and fun and perfect and great. Obviously, reach declined in an effort to get people to pay more. People were, and you can still do it, you can kind of find a way to kind of circumvent that algorithm and get your content out there in front of people for zero cost. If you post quality content, you figure out what your audience likes. But I definitely think that there should be a place in everyone's marketing budget for paid social ads, but they need to be well executed, right? So you need to think about who, kind of like the conversation we were having before we started this interview, like, who is your market? Who is spending money with you? Okay, where are those people? How are these people using digital media? How are they spending their time when they open their phone? What app do they go to first? That's going to be the one you want to put them on. And then how do you want them to purchase? Do you want them to purchase directly through the app like Facebook Marketplace? Or do you want to lead them to your website where they can feel a little bit more secure in the transaction because that's how they're used to spending money? Right. You just think about, build a profile of your customer and how they are how they're converting into a paying customer, and try to lead them down that path, and using social media marketing as a way to kind of leave that little trail of breadcrumbs that gets them to the cheese in the mousetrap.
So you're saying I might actually have to think this thing through than just have a profile and just be posting occasionally?
Unfortunately, that is the case, yes.
All right. Well, and that's good. That's what we need to hear. So once again, for everybody, this is all within the context of, 2022, we've got these big goals. We're launching these marketing plans and programs. We have all these aspirations. And I'm sure most, if not all of us, social media is a piece of that puzzle. But the problem I see, and I feel it firsthand, and I've also seen it just casually on the customer side, and then also from the consulting side, that there's a wide variety of ways that small and mid-sized businesses use social media. So, I mean, just to kind of put it in context, because there are some businesses that will see that social media is the end all be all. If you ask them what their marketing strategy is, well, they'll just say, I'm on Facebook and Instagram or whatever, or I just, this is how I reach out to my customers, is I have the X many followers. Some people, there are some like boutiques that don't even have a website. They're just running straight off of, one of the social media channels. So what do you think when a marketer is looking at his or her toolkit within all these different channels and options, what do you think is the biggest strength of social media to accomplishing their goals? And what do you think is the biggest weakness of social media when it comes to that?
So I think that the biggest strength that they could utilize is, obviously it allows you to speak directly to your market, but it also allows you to connect with people. And I hate to use this term because it's so polarizing, but it also allows you to connect directly to people who are influencers.
Right. No, I got it.
When that relationship is forged well and it's nurtured, it can be a benefit to both parties. And it allows you to utilize someone else's platform to get your message out to the people who are likely to do business with you. So that allows you to kind of nurture these relationships with people. It allows you to reach out directly to people. And as we've come to a place in society where people want to be heard and they want to feel like they have a connection to something. And it allows you to nurture those connections, and it allows you to speak directly to your customers and talk back to them. And a lot of people get so excited when they tweet about a brand and the brand tweets back to them like, hey, and they're like, oh my God, Parker's talked to me. And I'm like, we're a gas station, but okay. We're a convenience store, sorry. So that's a big strength. A weakness for social media, I think, where it can hurt you is if you post the wrong kinds of content. You can alienate portions of your audience. You could turn them off by, saying too many things. You could turn them off by not saying enough. You could, there are a lot of different ways. It's good to kind of find a balance, find a voice, find a way where you can maintain as much of your audience as possible and everyone's happy and good. Sometimes you kind of have to toe the line a little bit of what people want and what people will deem appropriate and acceptable. And in the market will let you know if you've crossed the line, and it's kind of time to pull back a little bit. I do that with Parker's. I post some pretty spicy memes. And there have only been a couple where people were like, well, that's too much. I'm like, okay, well, we won't make fun of Chick-fil-A for being closed on Sunday anymore. That's not okay. We live ourselves. So
Yeah,
you don't mess with the Lord's chicken.
yeah, yeah.
And you just have to kind of figure out what people think is funny and acceptable and good, and they'll let you know if they don't like it.
Yeah, I'll just say kind of like a comment or thought that I got when you were speaking about that. You can add on or correct me if you want to. I guess it's not so much a comment, but I was thinking kind of PR considerations when you were talking about what you were just talking about with social media. I think that people forget about that aspect and power, and also the danger of social media is on the positive side. You were talking about influence, and that's what a lot of brand power is in general, is influence and affluence. And so, I've heard even the PR firms talk about how social media is a version of social proof, right? And it's a platform that you can provide your community with and your audience with, where they can shout your praises, and you don't constantly have to toot your own horn through advertising. But on the flip side, when it comes to PR, I've heard a lot of small businesses talk about how they have to walk on pins and needles, even with their personal pages, because when people know that you're on social media, but then they know that your business is on social media, like you said, especially when social media goes into one of its frenzies on some kind of hot topic or real life controversy. If you don't, some people will dock you if you don't say something. If you do say something, and that could be your business or your personal page. So I'm sure that's been a lot of headache and confusion and consternation for small business brands when it comes to knowing how to say stuff and not say stuff and when.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I've had to have with clients, even talking about their personal pages. And some people really lean into it. Some brands are firmly like, this is our stance on issues, and we love this, and we don't like this. And the people that agree with them are like, hell yeah, brother. But the people that don't agree with them, they're not going to be their customer. And
Yep.
I don't think you and I are friends on Facebook, but we should be.
Mhm.
If you look at my personal Facebook, it's very vanilla. It's pictures of me and my kid having a good time, or I'm like, hey, here's this piece that we just made, or hey, we're in California shooting this, whatever. Nobody could go on my Facebook page and figure out who I voted for, or what my views are on any sort of hot button issues or anything, because I'm friends with a lot of people who are clients, people who are potential clients, and I don't need to have that out there. Also, nobody cares what I think, or really what anyone thinks. Nobody can. Like, if you scroll through your Facebook, one of your friends is like, this is how I feel on gun control. You're like,
yeah,
cool, man. And like, nobody cares. And yet people like really want people to care. So yeah, it's really important to kind of try to stay neutral, unless you're a brand like, and I'm not throwing them under the bus, but I'll use them as an example. Another Savannah-based company like Nine Line is very out there with their political views, and they're loud and proud, like, this is how we feel. And they've been able to build a brand around sharing the views of people who are typically their clientele. And that worked really well for them, because they have a lot of money. Or on the other side of the fence, there's a brand I think called like Penzeys Spices or something. Like, they are very, very, very out there politically, but on the other end of the spectrum. And I know people who will purposefully order from them because they share their political views and they feel good about spending money with them. So sometimes it can work for you or not work for you, but it's a pretty big risk to take, and not one that I prefer to take in my own path for my own life.
My 2 cents on this whole thing, but it is something we do need to think about, both for our company brands and then our personal brands. If you've got social media, it's something you're gonna have to think about. Is we have the freedom to make our own choices. We can't also then choose the consequences of those choices. So I would say you need to think about your personal values and make your bed and lay in it when it comes to whether or not you're posting on stuff that could be controversial or inflammatory. Same thing with your company brand. I would say know your audience and know what they like and care about, and then also know what your company values are. And if you want to step in it with conviction and be willing to deal with the consequences. And if you're going to kind of just stay out of it, then whatever you do, just make sure you're ready to deal with the consequences, good or bad. Like, I have my own way I handle my personal social media, if someone wants to get into it with me, they're welcome to. But I usually, just don't post about stuff because once again, when it comes down to it, people don't really care what you have to say on social media.
Yeah. And if you just in the last week, I think it happened with Carhartt. Are you familiar with the Carhartt situation?
I am.
Yeah,
Oh, no, not the situation, but I know the brand.
Yeah. Okay. So Carhartt, they typically make, they make stuff that's for people who tend to work outside and tend to have, more, not so much a desk job, but more like I'm out there doing things.
Blue collar, field, outside work.
Yeah. And they have a following of people who tend to kind of live that lifestyle. And they, in the last week, I think they were like, hey, if you're going to work at Carhartt, you got to be vaccinated. And people who used to love Carhartt are like, screw them. I'm going to light all my Carhartt stuff on fire. And I'm like, that doesn't really accomplish anything except now you have fewer items. Yep. But, and they went out there with conviction and said, this is how we feel. This is what we're doing. If you want to work here, this is what you're going to do. We're a privately owned company. This is, and they have created a situation for themselves. Yep. And but they walked into it with conviction, and they said this, and they're a very large company, and very likely they had a team of people like you and me who said, all right, let's weigh the risk versus benefits for this. And they decided to go with it.
Yep. And here's the thing is, people will listen to this and be like, why are y'all talking about all these different issues? But that's the thing is, whether you're a company or you're a personal profile, social media is the new public square. So you have to be thinking about these things when you think about your strategy and your practices, because you don't want to wait until the situation is already upon you before you think about these things. So I'm glad that Jillian brought this up. To make a transition point is there's two things that I feel like people always talk, and there's debates, and there's consternation over how to approach their social media channels. Quantity versus quality, and then part two would be organic versus paid. Whatever you want to say, maybe just when people are thinking about their planning, what their rhythms are going to be with their social media corporate profiles and channels this year. What are some considerations for us to know what are good rhythms when it comes to quantity versus quality on post, and then organic versus paid on posts?
So kind of going back to what I said before, it's just really knowing your audience and then knowing the platform that you're using. So, if you're talking about just a regular organic Facebook post or Instagram post, like, once a day is fine. But if you're talking about doing stories and reels and things that people can kind of move through quickly, then, do more of those. If you notice that you post too many, you start to lose followers, guess what? Post fewer. Or, it's having the wherewithal to consistently be kind of testing and measuring the metrics of what you're doing. Is that paying off? I did this, what happened? Was it good? Was it bad? Okay, well, let's try this. And just kind of trying to figure out what helps you move the needle in the right direction. If it moves the needle in the wrong direction, don't do that anymore, right? It's fairly simple. Yep. And then organic versus paid, all the time, when you are managing a brand for a long period of time, you learn what makes your audience react a lot. So I keep using Parker's as an example, but I will continue to use him as an example because I've been working with him for 9 years. So I know that they really like things that are funny, right? And I've developed a good sense of humor for that audience. Mm-hmm. So I know that we have something coming up in the hopper that's an announcement that I want a lot of people to see. Mm-hmm. But it's not necessarily something that's terribly exciting. It's not something that's going to gain a lot of traction in the newsfeed because it's not going to get a lot of engagement. I know that in the 48 hours leading up to it, I need to absolutely murder it with humor because that is going to get people sharing stuff and laugh reacting and everything. And because I get all those people excited about something and I've built up my audience really big, then I throw in the thing that I really want them to see. Mm-hmm. So that's a way that you're able to get a lot of eyeballs on something without buying your way into people's newsfeed. But right. If you haven't developed the way to do that yet, or you're still building an audience, I think that these days, most new social media presence needs to be paid for the first 6 months because you need to be building up that audience so you have people that are actually looking at your stuff, because you could drop the funniest meme in the history of memes, but if 4 people see it, it's not going to do anything. So it's kind of knowing when to use money and when to just use organic reach, and then just kind of knowing when and what to post, and all of that comes with time. I wish I could say that there was a magic formula.
Yeah, right.
With time, I've gotten pretty good at estimating it and being able to make a prediction on what's going to work and what's not going to work. But even I'm still surprised sometimes by reactions people get and the rate at which things grow or don't grow, for that matter.
Right. No, I agree. And what I'm learning as a non-social media expert, but it kind of feel like it falls in line with a lot of other media or marketing practices, is there needs to be some initial push, and it's going to involve paid push, right? And not many of us, can go viral. Like, you really can't plan per se exactly how to guarantee that you'll go viral. It's like getting the jet off the ground. For those of us who don't feel like we have a mature social media presence, getting that jet off the ground, you use most of the fuel on the takeoff, right? Once you're then cruising, then you don't have to constantly pump, boost this, that much money towards ads. But in the real world, if you want, that to be a significant vehicle for your company growth or your brand growth, whatever, it seems to me that, that the ad part of it is going to have to be a significant part of that plan. And then once you become more of a mature audience and you've really gotten to know your audience, like you said, you don't have to lean so heavily on the paid part of the platforms. Am I somewhat correct?
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. So when our listeners are making their marketing plans, choosing their channels, there's like a bajillion options. And it took me a while to figure this out, but I think I have my lane. I've heard that it's better to be on fewer channels and be really awesome at them rather than be in a bunch of channels and be non-existent and stale. So maybe could you kind of hammer that home and then help us understand which channels we should then really try to own when we're figuring out, what we're going to roll with this year?
So it really depends on who your market is. But yes, to your first point, yes, it is far better to do 1 or 2 things really well than to do 8 things with mediocrity, So it's best to look at, who are your customers, who's spending money with us, because that's really the end goal. So, if you think about a brand where a lot of people are looking at it, but the people that are looking at it aren't converting to customers, while that's great, visibility is great, it makes you feel really good, and it's a little feather in your hat, it's not converting to dollars. And that's really the end game, because we're all running businesses here. So, think about who the people are that are spending money with you, and what do these people do? How old are they? How do they engage with media? How are they when they pick up their smartphone? What's the first app that they go to? And it's usually pretty simple to figure out and build these little profiles of people, because people are very consistent in their behaviors across the board. So if somebody is, you're actually doing a really great job with your own building a presence, because you tend to work with people who own businesses, and people that own businesses, we don't spend a lot of time scrolling through TikTok. At least I don't. We are listening to podcasts in the car on the way to the office or on the way to a meeting or something. So that's a good way to get people. We spend a lot of time on YouTube, and we read emails. That's a good way to get somebody like me. If you're looking for somebody who's firmly in Gen Z and is 18 years old, you're going to find them on TikTok. They are not anywhere near Facebook. They're slowly moving away from Instagram, and they are. Yes, they are solidly on TikTok. Like that has a firm grasp on that Gen Z group. If you want to find millennials, look for them on Instagram. If you want to find what they call the geriatric millennials, like myself, who's pushing 40, you can still find us on Facebook. Or people that are, our parents' age, people in their 50s and 60s and early 60s.
Gen Xers, baby boomers, Facebook.
Yeah. Oh gosh, if you want to find a boomer, Facebook all the way. That is where they are. but you also have to think about how they're spending their money. So if you're trying to reach that boomer audience and you want to run an ad on Facebook, don't make it so that they have to purchase the item through Facebook, like through Marketplace or something, because A, they probably don't have a credit card saved on Facebook to purchase it. If you're adding an extra step, don't do that. B, their level of trust in e-commerce is not as high as someone who maybe is 26 and they're buying something through Instagram and they're used to buying something through Instagram. If you look at someone who's 56, they are used to following a link to go to a website. They look and make sure the little, the page has an SSL certificate. They look for the little padlock at the top of the browser. They use things differently. And so they're looking for a more secure transaction. You're going to get them there. So you have to really build this profile of who are these people and how are they, or are they the kind of people that you want to tempt them with stuff and then they go in store and they want to look at it and touch it and see how it feels in their hand. Are
you trying to get them to window shop or to, full on purchase, right?
Yeah. So, you just have to think about who people are, how they're spending money, and cater to that. Don't try to force them to spend money in a way that they're not comfortable with. If you want them to be your customer, you have to make it as easy as possible for them to cross that finish line and complete their purchase. And additionally, another good thing to do is to know what you don't know. So in my case, that meant I needed to hire somebody for our agency to do TikTok for our clients because I'm old and I just don't get. It's not.
For those of you who are not seeing Jillian and you're just listening, Jillian is not old at all. She's doing some self-deprecating humor. Jillian is a young lady, but we'll roll with it.
Listen, I am almost to the place where my age starts at the 4. Okay, I am not the TikTok generation, and that's okay.
Yes.
But it's knowing what you don't know, and if you don't know something and you don't feel comfortable with the platform, find someone who does. So we brought in, actually the person that we brought in, she is very young. She's a literal teenager, and her dad is on the corporate team at Parker's. That's how we ended up with her. So, and she is just a gem, and we work together to. She's like, all right, this is going to work on TikTok. Here's my idea. And I say, okay, let's take that idea and figure out how to, I run it through my marketer filter. How can we add a call to action? How can we make sure that this is consistently on brand so it's palatable to the audience, still staying true to the Parker's brand, but also going to work on TikTok. And so we combine our brains and we make it happen. So there's a lot of value in being aware of the things that you don't know about and getting help from somebody who does know about it.
Right. But here's the thing here's the thing though, is I went to the Parkers in Hinesville back when I was in high school, but that's the reason that Parkers is really, for example, is really thinking about, okay, maybe we typically don't do TikTok or no TikTok or like TikTok, but we know that, what part of our marketing strategy would be, hey, once these new drivers start getting on the road, and they're thinking about where they want to go get gas or where they want to hang out after school's out or where do they want to go get a snack before their after school activities, we want them to go to Parker's. So if we don't have a TikTok, a way to engage and build, an audience with that key demographic, because, I'm guessing that's probably something Parker's is thinking is, hey, if we can get them going to Parker's now when they're teenagers, look at the lifetime value of that relationship as they go through the different life phases. So if they just said, oh, well, TikTok's hard, or I don't like TikTok, and so I'm not going to try, that's a really big missed opportunity there.
Yeah, definitely. And Parker's really was very hot under the collar about doing TikTok. And I was like, what are we going to do? But, eventually we did it. And we've got some really funny ideas in the hopper. But the content for TikTok is vastly different from the content that we're doing on the other social networks. I mean, we'll save the TikTok videos and we'll post them on Instagram and Facebook as Reels, because the people who are looking at Reels on Instagram are not the people that are looking at newsfeed posts on Facebook. So we can also use different messages within the same platform to attract the different people, because different people use each platform different ways, and so you can have different kinds of content tailored to that audience. But their target market, their whole business model is designed for people like me. I am their target market. So the whole, like the way they set up their stores, the way they do every decision that they make is based around the 30-something mom with kids out running errands, making a lot of family decisions, filling up the minivan with gas, filling up their belly with chicken, getting their kids a slushie. Like that's their whole core demographic. So honestly, a lot of their marketing effort is focused on following that mom around and producing content that's exciting to her. However, we also find ways to get her teenager excited about it via TikTok, or they throw an ad on WTOC to excite the baby boomer, but I feel like I just kind of trailed into crazy territory.
No, but that's good, because like you said, that brand in particular is a unique type of company that has broad appeal. So there's a lot of involved with operating that. Some of our other brands, people listening, we might have a very narrow lane that we're trying to own, and so we might have a little bit more of a straightforward strategy. But depending on what your target demographic, bringing it back home, those are considerations. So a couple questions wrapping it home for us is. All right, so I need you to put on your coach's ball cap. We're in the locker room. All right, this is your pep rally speech or whatever it is as we're ending the episode. So for everybody listening, that was a lot to digest. Social media is super important. So what is your pep talk for us as we get into this year and try to be better on social media than we were last year?
All right, be consistent and plan things out. And don't just post things for the sake of putting something out online. Think about, like I said, think about the path of your consumer and cater your plan to that path, and cater your plan to who these people are. And if you really, really, really work at it, and you really take the time to come up with your plan and you stick to it, sticking to it's the hardest part, right? Because it really takes a lot of time. That's why companies hire people like me, right? Because they don't want to take the time. It can sometimes be like a full-time job, but if you really stay dedicated to it and you come up with a plan that works, and you keep, A/B testing things, like, does this work? No. Well, this works. Yes. Okay. And just really stay focused, then you will get to where you want to go. The worst thing you could do is start building up traction, and then you're like, oh, this is harder. We're so busy dealing with customers that we don't have time to nurture this social media. That's when things kind of fall apart, and that's when you lose some of that momentum. So I don't remember what ancient scientists said this, but an object in motion will remain in motion unless an opposite force acts upon it. So if you keep that momentum going, it's easier to keep it in motion. But if you stop it and you have to go from a dead start to where you were before, it's going to feel like like you're Sisyphus just pushing a rock up the hill forever. You don't want to do that. You want to get to that place where you can kind of be on autopilot, because you have systems and foundations in place that work. And that's really, it's a hard place to get to. But once you get there, man, it's a good place to be.
Awesome.
You can do it.
That's right. You can do it. Just I feel like Rob Schneider right now. You can do it.
Yeah.
So for some of the people listening may have no idea what that reference is, but it's awesome. Just go look it up.
There are people who don't know who Rob Schneider is.
I know. I was actually just watching 51st Dates the other day, which was totally awesome. Was one of his best portrayals. But go watch yourself some Rob Schneider. Jillian, that was awesome. I mean, I really appreciate you coming on today. So this is Jillian Rowe, SMG Film and Advertising. If people are listening to this and like, I need to connect with this lady, I need to follow her, I need to figure out how she can help me with this social media craziness, what's the best way to connect with Jillian?
So our website is smgaf.com. So it's SMG Advertising and Film, or if you are someone with a sense of humor.
That's what I was going to ask. Yep.
I mean, it was a really short domain, and I was like, that'll do.
And that's kind of new, right? That's a recent change. I don't think that was always your domain, was it?
No, it used to be. It used to be something else that we kind of rebranded a little bit.
Right.
We had a little bit of a name change, and so we had to redo our brand a little.
Well, I love the AF, the whole acronym thing. It's just working here. So SM as in mom, GAF
Yeah.
Is that the best way to reach out to you? Just go connect through
Yeah,
there?
I mean, our studio phone number's on there. All our socials are on there. Everything you could ever want is there.
Perfect. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for joining Good Morning Market. That was awesome. Everybody, like you said, Jillian says you can do it, therefore you can do it. But if you don't want to do it all yourself, you can go to smgaf.com and we'll just go from there. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jillian.
Or you can follow me on Instagram. It is it's Jillian Rowe.
Go in the search bar, guys. You can figure it out. My Soul Insights is following them too. So yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Jillian, again. And you have a great rest of the day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.